Hello, sorry for the delay, but we are live on the eve of the final presidential debate, and I think that we are in for a wild ride with this one. That is for sure. If folks don't know and haven't been keeping up, because there is a lot to keep up with in the news these days, there are some new developments with this one. So they have introduced a new rule where I won't say it's just the presidents, but mics will be turned off in the event that someone interrupts someone else while they're answering. And supposedly it's not going to be the moderator that is going to have control over this. It's going to be some independent third party that has the ability to turn off mics. I have a feeling personally that what's going to happen is that Trump is going to get muted a lot. That is my guess on what's happening or is going to happen. I really, really doubt that there's going to be a lot of that happening with Biden, but you never know. We'll see. I am not a person who drinks and does shots, but I suppose that there will be an opportunity for drunken shenanigans here if we want to, if someone in the audience wants to do shots for every time something about Hunter Biden's laptop is mentioned and then promptly ignored. People are complaining about an echo. Well, I mean, I'm doing the best I can, unfortunately, with the equipment at hand. The moderator is a woman. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but it'll tell us in a minute once this gets going. And she has been found to have some pretty deep ties to the DNC. She was caught giving questions to Hillary Clinton before the debates in 2016, and yet somehow she was still chosen as the moderator for this. Go figure with that. Pretty bizarre. I also saw some headlines that Trump is bringing a special guest to today's festivities, and that is none other than, I have no idea how to pronounce this fellow's name, but it is one of the folks that is implicated in the one of the many Hunter Biden scandals at this point, because there are several. I believe it is Tony Bobulinski that Trump invited to come as his guest at the debates. And this guy, will be talking about him tomorrow on the live stream, because I think tomorrow we're going to have to focus on this scandal again, because the amount of news it's coming out way too quickly. I've sat here and tried to write a video, like an actual regular video for you guys about him. And it's not happening. People are saying to change my mic source in OBS. I don't use OBS, so I can't do that. I'm only on StreamYard. Audio. Oh, I see. Okay. I can switch which mic we're using. Hopefully that's better. I do apologize for that. I don't know why it picked the webcam's mic as a default rather than my fancy mic here. Unfortunately, yeah, part of it is the room that I'm in. I have put up a bunch of foam. I have a sheet on the other side of the wall to block some of the sound, the echo, and it's still not that great. Anyway, so we have approximately 2 minutes, but so this fellow, Tony, how do you say his name again? Let me pull it up here again. Tony Bobulinski. Basically, he came forward and he is in, believe it's the CFEC scandal, because there's several now that have come out of deals that are were brokered between Hunter Biden and international companies and all of these things, and using Joe Biden as basically Joe Biden was basically using Hunter Biden as a go-between. Anyway, so this fellow came out and he did confirm some of the emails on the Hunter Biden laptop and did confirm that Big H, or the big guy, was a reference to Joe Biden in one of the emails. Again, I will discuss all of that in full tomorrow. So anyways, Trump asked this guy to be his guest at the debates, which I think is pretty funny. It's purely to rile up old Joe, who has been pretty riled up anyways, let me tell you. So this here says that the debates are supposed to start at 9 sharp, but C-SPAN is saying that we've still got another 4.5 minutes here. I see I got some super chats already, so let me take a look at those. CVA Buck says they'll mute Biden every time he incriminates himself. Also, I have bourbon, but not following any of the official rules. Well, you know what? You do you, boo-boo, with your bourbon. And you're right. I mean, they might use it whenever Biden starts to incriminate himself. There was a reporter that surprisingly did ask Joe Biden about the scandal, and he got pissed. He got very angry. And so it's a question of, I've heard 2 theories, right? One theory is that old Joe, of course, he has dementia and he can't think as quickly on his feet anymore, and, in cognitive decline. And when people get to a point where they can't think as clearly, they get angry, right? So that's one theory. The other theory is he gets angry because he knows that he did it and he knows that he's getting caught. I mean, at no point, he still hasn't denied any of it. And it's still being dismissed by the legacy media as Russian propaganda, even though now there are 3 people within national security and the FBI and such that have confirmed Russia has nothing to do with it and that the laptop is verified and legitimate. So it'll be interesting to see if that comes up. I'm sure it will. I'm sure Trump will try to bring it up, but it might not go very far. All right, so it looks like they are gearing up here. So I'm going to make sure that I've got this set up for you guys here. Hopefully the bandwidth comes through okay, because I have approximately 200 tabs open in my browser right now trying to follow the Joe Biden story. We'll unmute the speakers for when they get started. 23 Degrees says, let's start the party, Boston tea style. I like that a lot. Hunter Biden's crack pipe. Thank you. Thank you for the super chat. Rob Allen says, wow, YouTube is messed up on 2 streams. The chat keeps closing down, like the new digs. First stream since your move. How are the new digs? The new digs are excellent. Very excellent. They're not the permanent digs. They're rental digs for now. So I know, yellow background, unfortunately. Nothing can be done about that right now, but eventually it'll happen. The husband, we both got our South Carolina driver's licenses this week, and he celebrated by promptly going out and buying a Glock 26 because they were illegal in Massachusetts. So that's how we celebrated this week. Jonathan Green, thank you for the super sticker. Fenris Wolf 007 says, I think that Rudy is going to go for the Hail Mary pass on Monday or Tuesday. There is a nuclear destruction about to happen. Well, I believe he said he was going to release the biggest news 10 days before the election, and that would put us at Monday. Of course, the Delaware police have the laptop now based on allegations of child exploitation, we'll put it. Sean Scott says Joe Biden is behind on his rental company bills on renting the teleprompters. And Jesse Sowell, also thank you for the super sticker. Renee K. Plymouth Jr. says Hunter didn't kill himself, right? Oh my goodness. Neither did the newest allegations also implicated possibly Kamala, Dianne Feinstein, Chuck Schumer, all of the key Democrats. So none of them killed themselves either. Let's see. All right. So I'm going to unmute this now. It looks like we've still just got silence for the moment. Mr. Jones says, thank you for hosting, Doll. Well, thank you.
Good evening from Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Kristen Welker of NBC News, and I welcome you to the final 2020 presidential debate between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. Tonight's debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. It is conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Commission's health security advisor.
That's what I say to that.
The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, boos, or other interruptions, except right now, as we welcome to the stage former Vice President Joe Biden and President Donald J. Trump.
Hate it already. Let me know. Let me guys know that. Let me know if everything you can hear it all right. I do have to go through the speakers because for some reason the Chrome thing doesn't work to bring you guys the sound directly.
And I do want to say a very good evening to both of you. This debate will cover 6 major topics. At the beginning of each section, each candidate will have 2 minutes uninterrupted to answer my first question. The debate commission will then turn on their microphone only when it is their turn to answer, and the commission will turn it off exactly when the 2 minutes have expired. After that, both microphones will remain on, but on behalf of the voters, I'm going to ask you to please speak one at a time. The goal is for you to hear each other and for the American people to hear every
I'm going to be
word
timing
of what
some
you
of
both
these.
have to say. And so with that, if you're ready, let's start. And we will begin with the fight against the coronavirus. President Trump, the first question is
always.
for you. The country is heading into a dangerous new phase. More than 40,000 Americans are in the hospital tonight with COVID, including record numbers here in Tennessee. And since the two of you last shared a stage, 16,000 Americans have died from COVID. So please be specific. How would you lead the country during this next stage of the coronavirus crisis? 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
So, as you know, 2.2 million people modeled out were expected to die. We closed up the greatest economy in the world in order to fight this horrible disease that came from China. It's a worldwide pandemic. It's all over the world. You see the spikes in Europe and many other places right now. If you notice, the mortality rate is down 85%. The excess mortality rate is way down and much lower than almost any other country. And we're fighting it, and we're fighting it hard. There is a spike. There was a spike in Florida, and it's now gone. There was a very big spike in Texas. It's now gone. There was a very big spike in Arizona. It's now gone. And there are some spikes and surges in other places. They will soon be gone. We have a vaccine that's coming. It's ready. It's going to be announced within weeks, and it's going to be delivered. We have Operation Warp Speed, which is the military is going to distribute the vaccine. I can tell you from personal experience.
Honestly, I wouldn't trust the vaccine, but not anything to do with Trump. Just I wouldn't trust a vaccine that was developed that quickly.
That they gave me a therapeutic, I guess they would call it. Some people could say it was a cure, but I was in for a short period of time, and I got better very fast, or I wouldn't be here tonight. And now they say I'm immune, whether it's 4 months or a lifetime. Nobody's been able to say that, but I'm immune. More and more people are getting better. We have a problem that's a worldwide problem. This is a worldwide problem. But I've been congratulated by the heads of many countries on what we've been able to do. If you take a look at what we've done in terms of goggles and masks and gowns and everything else, and in particular ventilators, we're now making ventilators all over the world, thousands and thousands a month, distributing them all over the world. It will go away, and as I say, we're rounding the turn, we're rounding the corner. It's going away.
Okay.
Wow.
Vice President Biden,
He actually kept that
the country out
to
of this
2
crisis?
minutes.
You have 2
I am
minutes.
surprised.
220,000 Americans dead. You hear nothing else.
That's
I
how
say
he
tonight.
starts every
Who this?
time he talks about
Anyone
COVID.
who's responsible for not taking control. In fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially. Anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as president of the United States.
But he's
of America.
not. I mean, he can't
We're in a
stop
situation
death.
where
It's
there
a
are
virus that
1,000
is everywhere.
Deaths a day now, 1,000 deaths a day. And there are over 70,000 new cases per day. Compared to what's going on in Europe, as the New England Medical Journal said, they're starting from a very low rate. We're starting from a very high rate. The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead between now and the end of the year. If we just wore these masks, the president's own advisors have told him, we could save 100,000 lives. And we're in a circumstance where the president thus far still has no plan.
Europe is doing
comprehensive plan.
terribly right
What I
now.
would do is make sure we have everyone encouraged to wear a mask all the time. I would make sure we move in the direction of rapid testing, investing in rapid testing. I would make sure that we set up national standards as to how to open up schools and open up businesses so they can be safe and give them the wherewithal, the financial resources to be able to do that. We're in a situation now where the New England Medical Journal, one of the most serious journals in the whole world, said for the first time ever that the way this president has responded.
I'm not going to lie. I have trouble even
has been
paying attention to
absolutely
this
tragic.
guy.
And so, folks, I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a
You can't
plan.
end a virus.
President Trump, I'd like to
And he did
follow up
not
with you in
use
your
all of
comments.
his
You talked
time.
about taking a therapeutic. I assume you're referencing Regeneron. You also said a vaccine will be coming within weeks.
Yes.
Is that a guarantee?
No, it's not a guarantee, but it will be by the end of the year. But I think it has a good chance. There are two companies, I think, within a matter of weeks, and it will be distributed very
Can
quickly.
you tell us which companies?
Johnson & Johnson is doing very well. Moderna is doing very well. Pfizer is doing very well. And we have numerous others. Then we also have others that we're working on very closely with other countries, in particular Europe.
Let me follow up with you.
There
because
is
this
a
new
vaccine that they were
information.
just
You have said
testing
a vaccine
in
is coming
Brazil, I
soon
think,
within
and
weeks.
actually
Now,
one
your
of the
officials say
volunteers
it could take well
died.
into 2021 at the earliest for enough Americans to get vaccinated. And even then, they say the country will be wearing masks and distancing into 2022. Is your timeline realistic?
No, I think my timeline is going to be more accurate. I don't know that they're counting on the military the way I do, but we have our generals lined up, one in particular. That's
Here's some
the
stock
head of
advice from
logistics.
Matthew Harwick.
And this is a very easy distribution for him. He's ready to go as soon as we have the vaccine. And we expect to have 100 million vials. As soon as we have the vaccine, he's ready to go.
Vice President Biden, your reaction, and just 40% of Americans say they would definitely agree to take a coronavirus vaccine if it was approved by the government. What steps would you take to give
Yes,
Americans
Mitchell,
confidence
someone,
in a vaccine
they
if
didn't
it were
release
approved?
Make sure it's
details, but
totally
someone in South America
transparent.
did die
Have the
in the
scientists
vaccine
will see
trials.
it, know it, look at it, go through all the processes. And by the way, this is the same fellow who told you this is going to end by Easter last time. This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. We're about to go into a dark winter. And he has no clear plan, and there's no prospect.
Winter is
that there's going to
coming.
be a vaccine
The
available
night
for
is
the
dark
majority
and
of
full of
Americans.
terrors. That's what he sounds
President
like
Trump,
right
your reaction,
now.
he says
I
you have
don't
no
think we're
plan.
going to have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country. We've learned and studied and understand the disease, which we didn't at the beginning. When I closed and banned China from coming in heavily infected, and then ultimately Europe, but China was in January. Months later, he was saying I was xenophobic. I did it too soon. Now he's
True.
saying, oh, I should have, moved quicker. But he didn't move quicker. He was months behind me, many months behind me. And frankly, he ran the H1N1 swine flu, and it was a total disaster, far less lethal, but it was a total disaster. Had that had this kind of numbers,
Thank you for the math, E. Motherian.
700,000 people would be dead right now. But it is a far less lethal disease. Look, his own person who ran that for him,
He looks so
who,
much
as
like
you
that
know,
Walter
was his,
puppet right now,
chief of
Biden.
staff, said it was catastrophic. It was horrible. We didn't know what we were doing. Now he comes up and he tells us how to do this. Also, everything that he said about the way every single move that he said we should make, that's what we've done. We've done all of it. But he was way behind us.
Vice President Biden, your response.
My response is he is xenophobic, but not because he shut down access from China. And he did it late after 40 countries had already done that. In addition
He
to that,
did it
what
really
he made
early,
sure
and
that
they
we
were
had 44
saying
people that were in there
that he was
in China
xenophobic
trying to
for
get to
cutting
Wuhan
travel.
to determine what exactly the source was. What did the president say in January? He said, no, he said, he's being transparent. The president of China is being transparent. We owe him a debt of gratitude. We have to thank him. And then what happened was we started talking about using the Defense Act to make sure we go out and get whatever is needed out there to protect people. And again, I go back to this. He had nothing. He did virtually nothing. And then he gets out of the hospital and he talks about, don't worry, it's all going to be over soon. Come on. There's not another serious scientist in the world who thinks it's going to be over soon.
President Trump, your reaction?
Say over soon. I say we're learning to live with it. We have no choice. We can't lock ourselves up in a basement like Joe does. He has the ability to.
I mean,
lock
Biden
himself
was
up.
in
I mean,
hiding
he's
for the last
obviously made
like
a lot of money
week, but
someplace.
for
But he
other
has this
reasons.
thing about living in a basement. People can't do that. By the way, I, as the president, couldn't do that. I'd love to put myself in the basement or in a beautiful room in the White House and go away for a year and a half until it disappears. I can't do that. And Kirsten, every meeting I had, and I'd meet a lot of families, including Gold Star families and military families. Every meeting I had, and I had to meet them. I had to. It would be horrible to have canceled everything. I said, this is dangerous, and you catch it. And I caught it. I learned a lot. Great doctors, great hospitals.
I think he's actually handling
And
this
now
question
I
very
recovered.
well because he's right.
99.9
You can't just
of young people recover.
You can't just hide away.
99% of people recover. We have to recover. We can't close up our nation. We have to open our school, and we can't close up our nation, or you're not going to have a nation.
And of
He's
course, the
absolutely
CDC
right.
has said young people can get sick with COVID-19 and can pass it. Vice President Biden, I want to talk broadly about strategy, though. You
I
have
respond to that.
30 seconds, please, and then
30
I have a
seconds.
question.
No, number one, he says that we're learning to live with it. People are learning to die with it. You folks home will have an empty chair at the kitchen table this morning.
I'm sorry.
That man or wife going to bed tonight and reaching over to try to touch their, out of habit, where their wife or husband was, is gone. Learning to live with it. Come on. We're dying with it.
I mean, you
because
can't
he's never
stop
said, he
death.
said it's dangerous. When's the last time? Is it really dangerous still? Are we dangerous? You tell the people it's dangerous now? What should they do about the danger? And you say,
30
take no
seconds are now up.
Let me talk about your two.
Excuse me,
Very
I take full responsibility. It's not my fault that he came here. It's China's fault. And you know what? It's not Joe's fault that he came here either. It's China's fault. They kept it from going
Correct.
into the rest of China for the most part, but they didn't keep it from coming out to the world, including
Correct.
Europe and ourselves.
Vice President Biden.
fact is that when we knew it was coming, when it hit, what happened? What did the president say? He said, don't worry, it's going to go away. Be gone by Easter. Don't worry.
I do too,
Warm
Sam,
weather.
honestly.
Don't worry. Maybe inject bleach. He said he was kidding when he said that. A lot of people thought it was serious. A whole range of things the president has said. Even today, he thinks we are in control. We're about to lose 200,000 more people.
President Trump.
I want to know where
Perhaps
that
just to finish
200,000
this.
number is coming
I
from.
was kidding on that, but just to finish this, when I closed, he said I shouldn't have closed. And that went on for
That is
months.
true, he did.
Nancy Pelosi said the same thing. She was dancing on the streets in Chinatown in San Francisco.
That is true.
But
She
when
told
I
people,
closed,
come
he
down to
said,
Chinatown.
This is a terrible thing. You're xenophobic. I think he called me racist even. And because I was closing it to China. Now he says I should have closed it earlier. It just, Joe, it doesn't work.
I didn't say either of those things.
Yes,
he
he
did.
did. He
He
totally did.
I talked about his xenophobia in a different context. It wasn't about closing the border to Chinese coming to the United States.
All right, I want to talk about both of your different strategies to handle
He thought I shouldn't have closed the border.
Well,
That's obvious.
do you want to respond to that quickly, Vice President? No. Okay.
How?
Let's talk about
Why?
your different strategies toward dealing with this. Mr. Vice President, you suggested you would support new shutdowns if scientists recommended it. What do you say to Americans who are fearful that the cost of shutdowns, the impact on the economy, the higher rates of hunger, depression, domestic and substance abuse outweighs the risk of exposure to the virus?
What I would say
It's actually a
I'm gonna
good
shut
question.
down the virus, not the country. It's his ineptitude that caused the country to have to shut down.
The
in large
governors
part.
shut
Businesses have
down.
gone under, why
The
schools have
individual
closed, why so many
governors.
people have
Trump
lost
did not
their
do
living,
that.
and
Oh
why
my
they're concerned.
God.
Those other concerns are real. That's why he should have been, instead of in a sand trap at his golf course, he should have been negotiating with Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Democrats and Republicans about what to do.
Isn't
about
it
the acts
Congress's
that are
job to
passing for
negotiate with
billions
each
of dollars
other?
to make sure people
Isn't that
have the
not what
capacity.
Trump
And you
does?
haven't ruled out more shutdowns.
Well, no, I'm not shutting down the but there are, look, you need standards. The standard is if you have a reproduction rate in a community that's above a certain level, everybody says, slow up, more social
Slow up?
distancing. Do not open bars and do not open gymnasiums. Do not open until you get this under control, under more control. But when you do open, give the people the capacity to be able to open and have the capacity to do it safely. For example, schools, they need a lot of money to open. They need to deal with ventilation systems. They need to deal with smaller classes, more teachers, more pods. And he's refused to support that money, or at least up to now.
Let's talk about.
He has nothing to do with that.
Well,
That's
I'm
been
making a
Congress.
first
That's
Please,
it's
and
the
then I have a
Democrats
Thank
in
you, and I
Congress
appreciate
holding
that.
that up.
Look, all he does is talk about shutdowns, but forget about him. His Democrat governors, Cuomo in New York, you look at what's going on in California, you look at Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Democrats all, they're shut down so tight and they're dying. They're dying. And he supports all these people. All he talks about is shutdowns. No, we're not going to shut down, and we have to open our schools. And it's like, as an example, I have a young son. He also tested positive. By the time I spoke to the doctor the second time, he was fine. It just went away. Young people, I guess it's their immune system.
Let me follow up with you, President Trump. You've demanded schools open in person and insist they can do it safely. But just yesterday, Boston became the latest city to move its public school system entirely online.
I just heard about that today. Clients were telling me about that
Sending
today.
their children to school will endanger not only their kids, but also their teachers and families.
I want to open the schools.
But interestingly, the schools outside of Boston are doing in-person learning right now.
We have to open our country. We're not going to have a country. You can't do this. We can't keep this country closed. This is a massive country with a massive economy. People are losing their jobs. They're committing suicide. There's depression, alcohol, drugs at a level that nobody's ever seen before. There's abuse, tremendous abuse. We have to open our country.
He is completely right.
I've said it often. The cure cannot be worse than the problem itself. And that's what's happening. And he wants to close down. He'll close down the country if one person in our massive bureaucracy says we should close it down.
Vice President Biden, your response.
Simply not true. We ought to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We ought to be able to safely open, but they need resources to open. You need to be able to, for example, if you're going to open a business, have social distancing within the business. You need to have, if you have a restaurant, you need to have plexiglass dividers so people cannot infect one another. You need to be in a position where you can take testing rapidly and know whether a person is in fact infected. You need to be able to trace. You need to be able to provide all the resources that are needed to do this. And that is not inconsistent with saying that what we're going to make sure that we open safely. And by the way, all you teachers out there, not that many of you are going to die, so don't worry about it. Come on.
President Trump, let me follow up with you quickly.
Oh my
I will
God.
say this. If you go and look at what's happened to New York, it's a ghost town.
So
It's a
is
ghost
Boston.
And when you
Legit.
talk about plexiglass, these are restaurants that are dying. These are businesses with no money.
Yep.
Putting up plexiglass is unbelievably expensive, and it's not the answer. I mean, you're going to sit there in a cubicle wrapped around with plastic. These are businesses that are dying, Joe. You can't do that to people. You just can't. Take
Trump
a
is
look
doing
at New York
really
and what's
good
happened
tonight.
to my wonderful city for so many years. I loved it. It was vibrant. It's dying. Everyone's leaving New York.
Take a look at what New York has done in terms of turning the curve down in terms of the number of people dying. And I don't look at this in terms of the way he does. Blue states and red states. They're all the United States. And look at the states that are having such a spike in the coronavirus. They're the red states. They're the states in the Midwest. They're the states in the upper Midwest. That's where the spike is occurring significantly. But they're all Americans. They're all Americans. And what we have to do is say, wear these masks, number one. Make sure we get the help that the businesses need that has money's already been passed to do that. It's been out there since the beginning of the summer and nothing's happened.
President, New
Congress
York
has stalled
lost
on
more
that.
than 40,000 people, 11,000 people in nursing homes.
President Trump, what
When you
about,
say spike, take a look at what's happening in Pennsylvania,
Yep.
where they've had it closed. Take a look at what's happening with your friend in Michigan, where her husband's the only one allowed to do anything. It's been like a prison. Now it was just ruled unconstitutional. Take a look at North Carolina. They're having spikes.
Love
and they've
it.
been closed.
Boom.
And they're getting
Mic
killed
drop.
financially. We can't let that happen, Joe. You can't let that happen. We have to open up. And we understand the disease. We have to protect our seniors. We have to protect our elderly. We have to protect especially our seniors with heart problems and diabetes problems. And we will protect them. We have the best testing in the world by far.
Whoa,
That's
what
why we
was
have
that?
so many cases.
let me follow up with you before we move on to our next section. President Trump, this week you called Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's best-known infectious disease expert, quote, a disaster. You described him and other medical experts as, quote, idiots. If you're not listening to them, who are you listening to? Fight this.
I'm listening to all of them, including Anthony. I get along very well with Anthony, but he did say, don't wear masks. He did
This
say,
is a good point,
as you
Thomas
know,
Ratliff.
this is not going to be a problem. I think he's a Democrat, but that's okay. He said, this is not going to be a problem.
And you're right.
We are
At the
not gonna
beginning,
have a problem at
CDC
all.
did not
When
recommend
Joe says
masks.
I said, Anthony Fauci said, and others, and many others, and I'm not knocking him a lot. Nobody knew. Look, nobody knew what this thing was. Nobody knew where it was coming from, what it was. We've learned a lot. But Anthony said, don't wear masks. Now he wants to wear masks. Anthony also said, if you look back, exact words, here's his exact words. This is no problem. This is going to go away soon. So he's allowed to make mistakes. He happens to be a good person.
Vice President Biden, your response quickly, and then we're going to move on to the next
My
section.
response is that think about what the president knew in January and didn't tell the American people. He was told this was a serious virus that spread in the air, and it was much worse than the flu. He went on record and said to one of your colleagues, recorded, that in fact he knew how dangerous it was, but he didn't want to tell us. He didn't want to tell us.
So he
because
did
didn't want
like
us
what
to
every
panic.
other president
He
would
didn't
have
want us-
done.
Americans don't panic. He panicked. But guess what? In the meantime, we find out in the New York Times the other day that, in fact, his folks went to Wall Street and said this is a really dangerous thing. And a memo out of that meeting, not from his administration, but from some of the brokers, said sell short because we got to get moving. It's a dangerous problem.
Well, this is
I'm going to
one
give you
this
30
is one I
seconds to
haven't-
respond, and then we're
The
going
Wall
to
Street
move
one, I
on.
don't know. Somebody went to Wall Street. You're the one that takes all the money from Wall Street. I don't take it.
I have.
You have raised
True.
a lot of money, tremendous amounts of money. And every time you raise money, deals are made, Joe. I could raise so much more money as president and as somebody that knows most of those people. I could call the heads of Wall Street, the heads of every company in America. I would blow away every record, but I don't want to do that because it puts me in a bad position. And then you bring up Wall Street. You shouldn't be bringing up Wall Street because you're the one that takes the money from Wall Street, not
That
me.
is true.
I could blow away your records that like you wouldn't believe. We don't need money. We have plenty of money. In fact, we beat Hillary Clinton with a tiny fraction of the money that she was able
All right, gentlemen, we're
Don't
going to
tell me
move on.
about Wall
Average
Street.
We're gonna-
contribution, $43.
All right, we're going to move on to our next section, which is national security. And I do want to start with the security of our elections and some breaking news from overnight. Just
Very
last
good
night,
point,
top
Daniel.
intelligence officials confirmed again that both Russia and Iran are working to influence this election. Both countries have
By
obtained
posing
US
as
voter
Proud
registration
Boys,
information, these
by the
officials
way.
say, and Iran sent intimidating messages to Florida voters. This question goes to you, Mr. Vice President. What would you do to put an end to this threat? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
I made it clear, and I ask everyone else to take the pledge. I made it clear that any country, no matter who it is, that interferes in American elections will pay a price. They will pay
So
a
what?
price.
The average
It's been
American is going
overwhelmingly
to
clear
pledge
this
to
election.
this?
Won't
That
even get into the last
makes no sense.
this election, that Russia has been involved, China has been involved to some degree, and now we learn that Iran is involved. They will pay a price if I'm elected. They're interfering with American sovereignty. That's what's going on right now. They're interfering with American sovereignty. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think the president said anything to Putin about it. I don't think he's talking to him a lot. I don't think he said a word. I don't know why he hadn't said a word to Putin about it. And I don't know what he has recently said, if anything, to the Iranians. My guess is he'd probably be more outspoken with regard to the Iranians. But the point is this, folks.
What?
We are in a situation where we have foreign countries trying to interfere in the outcome of the election.
Foreign companies. That was a
National
nice
Security
little
Advisor
Freudian
told
slip.
him that what is happening with his buddy well, I shouldn't, oh, I will. His buddy, Rudy Giuliani, he's being used as a Russian pawn. He's being
No,
fed
he's not.
information
That's been
that is Russian,
disproved.
that is not true. And then what happens? Nothing happens. And then you find out that everything is going on here about Russia is wanting to make sure that I do not get elected the next president of the United States because
No,
they know I know them and they
that's
know
not
me.
what's happening at
I don't
all.
understand why this president is unwilling to take on Putin when he's actually paying bounties to kill American soldiers in Afghanistan, when he's engaged in activities that are trying to destabilize all of NATO. I don't know why he doesn't do it, but it's worth asking the question. Why isn't that being done? Any country that interferes with us will, in fact, pay a price.
The intelligence on Iran says that they have been posing as Proud Boys to make Republicans and Trump look bad.
There has been substantial interference from foreign adversaries. What would you do in your next term to put an end to this? 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Well, let me respond to the first part as Joe answered. Joe got $3.5 million from Russia, and it came through Putin because he was very friendly with the former mayor of Moscow, and it was the mayor of Moscow's wife, and you got $3.5 million. Your family got $3.5 million.
That's stuff from the laptop.
And, someday you're going to have to explain, why did you get 3.5? I never got any money from Russia. I don't get money from Russia. Now, about your thing last night, I knew all about that. And through John Ratcliffe, who was fantastic, DNI, he said, the one thing that's common to both of them, they both want you to lose. Because there has been nobody tougher to Russia. Between the sanctions, nobody tougher than me on Russia. Between the sanctions, between all of what I've done with NATO, I've got the NATO countries to put up an extra $130 billion, going to $420 billion a year. That's to guard against Russia. I sold, while he was selling pillows and sheets, I sold tank busters to Ukraine. There has been nobody tougher on Russia than Donald Trump. And I'll tell you, they were so bad. They took over the submarine port. You remember that very well. During your term, during you and Barack Obama, they took over a big part of what should have been Ukraine. You handed it to them, but you were getting a lot of money from Russia. They were paying you a lot of money, and they probably still are. But now, with what came out today, it's even worse. All of the emails, the horrible emails of the kind of money that you were raking in, you and your family. And you were vice president when some of this was happening, and it should have never happened. And I think you owe an explanation to the American people.
Yes.
Why is it? Somebody just had a news conference a little while ago who was essentially supposed to work with you and your family. But what he said was damning. And regardless of me, I think you have to clean it up and talk to the American people. Maybe you can do it right now.
Why is it the news won't do this, but Trump will?
I do want to follow up on the election security.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life. We learned that this president paid 50 times the tax in China, has a secret bank account with China.
It's not secret if the government knows about it.
And in fact, is talking about me taking money. I have not taken a single penny from any country whatsoever.
He took it from Hunter. Hunter was holding it for him.
This is a president. I have released all of my tax returns, 22 years. Go look at them. 22 years of my tax return. You have not released a single solitary year of your tax return. What are you hiding?
Yeah, he did.
Why are you unwilling? The foreign countries are paying you.
Well, isn't he being audited right now?
Russia's paying you a lot. China's paying you a lot. And your hotels and all your businesses all around the country, all around the world. And China's building a new road to a new a golf course you have overseas. So what's going on here?
Again, that bank account isn't secret if the government knows about it, and they
First of
do.
all, I called my accountants under audit. I'm going to release them as soon as we can. I want to do it, and it'll show how successful, how great this company is. But much more importantly than that, people were saying $750. I asked them a week ago, I said, what did I pay? They said, sir, you prepaid tens of millions of dollars. I prepaid my tax. Tens over the last number of years.
Yep, that is true.
Tens
And
of
it says
millions
that
of
right in the
dollars
New
I
York Times
prepaid.
report.
Because at some point they think it's an estimate. They think I may have to pay tax. So I already prepaid it. Nobody told me that.
Did your accountant
Nobody
tell
told
when
you
would
that.
release
Excuse
them?
me. And it wasn't written. Whenever they write this, they keep talking about $750, which I think is a filing fee. But let me just tell you, I prepaid millions and millions of dollars in taxes. Number one. Number two. I
Right,
don't
the
make money
business
from
account in China
You
is
do.
a business
make money
account
from
for the
Ukraine.
hotels
You
and
do.
real
I
estate.
don't make money from Russia. You made $3.5 million, Joe, and your son gave you. They even have a statement that we have to give 10% to the big man. You're the big man, I think.
Yep,
I don't know, maybe you're not, but you're the big man, I think.
he's been
Your son said we have to
confirmed
give
by,
10% to the
I
big
believe
man.
that the Bobby
Joe, what's that
Linsky
all
guy,
about? It's terrible.
that
All
he
right,
was
gentlemen, I'm
the
going to
big
ask you
guy.
both some questions
I have to
about all of
respond
this,
to
but I'm going to let you both respond very quickly. You just said you spoke to your accountant
Yes.
about potentially releasing your taxes. Did he tell you when you can release them? Do you
As
have
soon
a
as the audit is
deadline for
finished,
when you're going to release them
I
to the
get
American
treated
people?
worse than the Tea Party got treated. Because
you
I have a
don't
lot
have
of
a
people in there, deep down in the IRS, they treat me horribly. We made a deal, it was all settled until I decide to run for president. I get treated very badly by the IRS, very unfairly. But we had a deal all done. As soon as we're completed with the deal, I want to release it. But I have paid millions and millions of dollars, and it's worse than paying. I paid in advance. It's called prepaying your taxes. I paid in
Yep.
advance.
I want to ask you
Yep.
both about
I have to
questions
do that.
regarding your potential foreign entanglements and questions.
If you're
that have been
self-employed,
raised.
you have to
Both
do,
a
well,
chance
you're
So
to
supposed
talk
to do
about this
that.
more broadly. Respond very quickly, and then I'll get to my question.
Why did he's been saying this for 4 years? Show us. Just show us. Stop playing around. You've been saying for 4 years you're going to release your taxes.
If he's being
Nobody
audited, he
knows,
can't
Mr.
release
President.
the
What they do
paperwork.
know is you're not paying your taxes, or you're paying taxes that are so low. When last time he said what he paid, he said, I only pay that little because I'm smart. I know how to game the system. Come on, folks.
Very
So
quickly, President Trump, and then I want to get to two questions to both of you.
I was put through a phony witch hunt for 3 years.
Yep,
It started before I even got elected. They spied on my campaign. No president should ever have to go through what I went through. Let me just say this. Mueller and 18 angry Democrats and FBI agents all over the place spent $48 million.
yep.
They went through everything I had, including my tax returns, and they found absolutely no collusion and nothing wrong. 48 million. I guarantee you, if I spent 1 million on you, Joe, I could find plenty wrong. Because
All right.
the kind of things that you've done and the kind of monies that your family has taken, I mean, your brother made money in Iraq,
Let me,
millions of dollars. Your other brother made a fortune, and it's all through you, Joe. And they say you get some of it, and you do live very well. You have houses all over the place. You live very well.
all right, gentlemen, let me just ask some
Okay.
questions about all of this broadly. Vice President Biden, there have been questions about the work your son has done in China and for a Ukrainian energy company when you were vice president. In retrospect, was anything about those relationships inappropriate or unethical?
Nothing was unethical. Here's what the deal. Regarding Ukraine.
Here's the deal.
We had this whole question about whether or not, because he was on the board, I later learned of Burisma, a company, that somehow I had done something wrong. Yet every single solitary person, when he was going through his impeachment, testifying under oath who worked for him, said, I did my job impeccably. I carried out U.S. policy. Not one single solitary thing was out of line. Not a single thing, number one. Number
Okay.
two, the guy who got in trouble in Ukraine was this guy trying to bribe the Ukrainian government to say something negative about me, which they would not do and did not do because it never, ever, ever happened. My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about? China. I have not had it. The only guy who made money from China is this guy.
I don't know what you're
Only one.
talking about, but
Nobody
my
else has
son
made
didn't
money.
make money off it,
Nothing
really.
to do with
Let me
China.
let me
By the
ask
way,
my question to you.
but could I just one thing?
Hunter
His
did
son
fly over on Air
Didn't
Force
have a
Two.
job
That
for a
is
long time,
correct.
was sadly no longer in the military service. I won't get into that. And he didn't have a job. As soon as he became vice president, Burisma, not the best reputation in the world. I hear they paid him $183,000 a month. Listen to this. 183, and they gave him a $3 million upfront payment.
It was
right.
actually
And he had no-
$83,000 a month.
That's
Respond to that quickly, and then I
100%
need to get to a
dishonest.
question to you. Very
No
quickly,
basis for
President.
that. Everybody investigated that. No one said anything he did was wrong in Ukraine.
Okay, President Trump, this is for you. Since you took office, you've never divested
Well, he
from
didn't-
the business. You've
he
personally
just didn't
promoted
deny
your
it
properties
happening.
abroad. A report this week which was referenced, does indicate that your company has a bank account in China. So how can voters know that you don't have any foreign conflict of interest?
I have many bank accounts and they're all listed and they're all over the place. I mean, I was a businessman doing business. The bank account you're referring to, which is, everybody knows about it, it's listed. The bank account was in 2013. That's what it was. It was open to do. It was closed in 2015, I believe. And then I decided, because I was thinking about doing a deal in China like millions of other people. I was thinking about it and I decided I'm not going to do it. Didn't like it. I decided not to do it. Had an account open and I closed it.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then, unlike him, where he's vice president and he does business, I then decided to run for president after that. That was before. So I closed it before I even ran for president, let alone became president. Big difference. He is the vice president of the United States, and his son, his brother, and his other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking up money.
President Trump,
Everybody
thank you. We do need to
True.
move on. I do want to ask you, Vice President Biden, about China. Let's talk about China more broadly. There have, of course, President Trump has said that they should pay for not being fully transparent in regards to the coronavirus. If you were president, would you make China pay? And please be specific. What would that look like?
What I'd make China do is play by the international rules.
Yeah,
not like
okay.
he has done. He has caused the deficit of China to go up, not down, with China, up, not down. We are making sure that in order to do business in China, you have to give all your intellectual property. You have to have a partner in China. It's 51%. We would not do that at all, number one. Number two, we're in a situation where China would have to play by the rules internationally as well. When I met with Xi, when I was still vice president, he said, we're setting up air identification zones in the South China Sea. You can't fly through them. I said, we're going to fly through them. We just flew B-52, B-1 bombers through it. We're not going to pay attention. They have to play by the rules. And what's he do? He embraces guys like the thugs like in North Korea and the Chinese president and Putin.
I mean, I'd
others.
rather him
And
be
he
friendly with
puts his
North
finger
Korea
down all
than
of our friends,
poking
all
at
our
them all the
allies.
time.
We make up we're 25% of the world's economy. We need to be having the rest of our friends with us saying to China, these are the rules. You play by them or you're going to pay the price for not paying by them economically. That's the way I will run it. And that's what we did in upholding steel tariffs and a range of other things when we were president and vice president.
All right, let's talk about North Korea.
Excuse me, no, I have to
Yes.
respond to that.
Okay, very quickly, and then we're going to move on to
with
North
$1.5 billion
Korea.
from China to
Not
manage after
true.
spending 10 minutes in office and being in Air Force Two.
Yep.
Number one. Number two, there's a very strong email talking about your family wanting to make $10 million a year for introductions.
President Trump, on China
Not
policy
true.
though, what
No, but wait a
specifically are
minute.
you going to do? What specifically are you going to do to make China pay? You said you're going
First
to
of
make
all,
them pay.
China is paying. They're paying billions and billions of dollars. I just gave
New
$28 billion.
sanctions? New sanctions?
I just gave $28 billion to our farmers.
Taxpayers'
China,
money.
It's what?
Taxpayers' money. Didn't
No,
come
no,
from
yeah,
China.
you know who the taxpayer is? It's called China. China
Not
paid
true.
$28 billion, and you know what they did to pay it, Joe? They devalued their currency, and they also paid up. And you know who got the money? Our farmers, our great farmers, because they were targeted. You never charged them anything. Also, I charged them 25% on dumped steel because they were killing
He
our
did
steel
get
industry.
criticized
We were
for
not gonna
putting
have a steel
tariffs on
industry.
China.
And
That is
now we have a
correct.
steel
Okay,
industry.
Vice President Biden, your response, please.
My response is, look, this isn't about, there's a reason why he's bringing up all this malarkey. There's a reason for it. He doesn't want to talk about the substantive issues. It's not about his family and my family. It's about your family. And your family's hurting badly. If you're making less than...
That is a
if you're
huge
middle-class family,
deflection.
you're getting hurt badly right now. You're sitting at the kitchen table this morning deciding, well, we can't get new tires, they're bald because we have to wait
This is a
another month.
Kamala Harris
Or
line
maybe
about
they
the
will pay
kitchen
mortgage.
table.
Who's going to tell her she can't go back to community college? They're the decisions you're making. And the middle-class families like I grew up in Scranton and Claymont, they're in trouble. We should be talking about your families, but that's the last thing he wants to talk about.
I want
That is a
to talk
typical
about
statement.
North
Excuse
Korea.
me, just
I
for
do
one
want to
second,
turn to
please.
10 seconds, Mr. President,
That's
10
a
seconds.
typical political statement. Let's get off
Yep.
this China thing, and then he looks, the family around the table, everything. Just a typical politician when I see that.
Let's talk
I'm
about
not
North
a typical
Korea now.
politician.
Okay,
That's why I got elected.
Let's talk
Let's
about-
get off the subject of China. Let's talk around, sitting around the table.
All right.
Come on, Joe, you can do better.
We're going to talk about North Korea now. President Trump, you've met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un 3 times. You've talked about your beautiful letters with him. You've touted the fact that there hasn't been a war or a long-range missile test. And yet North Korea recently rolled out its biggest ever intercontinental ballistic missile and continues to develop its nuclear arsenal. Do you see that as a betrayal of the relationship you
No.
forged? Just 30 seconds here because we need to get on to the next.
So when I met with Barack Obama, we sat in the White House right at the beginning, had a great conversation. It was supposed to be 15 minutes and it was well over an hour. He said the biggest problem we have with North Korea. He indicated we will be in a war with North Korea. Guess what? It would be a nuclear war. And he does have plenty of nuclear capability. In the meantime, I have a very good relationship with him. Different kind of a guy, but he probably thinks the same thing about me. We have a different kind of a relationship. We have a very good relationship, and there's no war. And about 2 months ago, he broke into a certain area. They said, oh, there's going to be trouble. I said, no, they're not, because he's not going to do that. And I was right. Look, instead of being in a war where millions of people, Seoul, is 25 miles away,
Yep.
millions and millions, 32 million people in Seoul, millions of people would be
Okay.
dead right now.
President
We
Trump,
don't have a
that's
war,
30
and I have a
seconds.
good
Thank you.
relationship.
Vice President
Oh,
Biden,
good
to you,
point,
North
David
Korea
Neal. They
conducted
weren't
4
supposed to
nuclear
talk
tests
about
under the Obama
foreign policy
administration.
tonight.
Why do you think you would be able to rein in this persistent threat? right
Because
now?
I'd make it clear, which we were making clear to China, they had to be part of the deal, because here's I made it clear as a spokesperson of the administration when I went to China, that they said, why are you moving your missile defense up so close? Why are you moving more forces here? Why are you continuing to do military maneuvers with South Korea? I said, because North Korea is a problem, and we're going to continue to do it so we can control them. We're going to make sure we can control them and make sure they cannot hurt us. And so if you want to do something about it, step up and help. If not, it's going to continue. What has he done? He's legitimized North Korea. He's talked about his good buddy who's a thug, and he talks about how we're better off. And they have much more capable missiles, able to reach U.S. territory much more easily than ever did before.
Let me follow up with you, Vice President Biden.
But
You
what is
said
he
you
gonna
wouldn't
do?
meet with Kim Jong-un without preconditions. Are there any conditions under which you would meet with him?
On the condition that he would agree that he would be drawing down his nuclear capacity.
That's not going to
Get the
happen.
Korean Peninsula
You're
to
never going to get a
nuclear-free
meeting with
zone.
him then.
All right, let's move on to American
Kristen,
families.
they tried
Very
to meet
quickly,
with
10
him.
seconds,
They
President.
tried to meet with him. He wouldn't do it. He didn't like Obama. He didn't like him. He wouldn't do it.
Okay, I
know
got to
for a
give him a
fact they
chance to
tried.
respond to that
He
before we
wouldn't
move
do
on.
it.
You
And
know,
that's
I-
okay. You know what, North Korea, we're not in a war. We have a good relationship. People don't understand. Having a good
President
relationship
Trump,
with
we have to
leaders
move
of other
on because we
countries
have a
is a
lot of
good thing.
we have a lot of questions to get
Yes,
to.
not
That's
Your
bad.
like
response.
saying we had a good relationship with Hitler before he in fact invaded
Whoa.
Europe. the rest of Europe. Come on. The
Whoa.
reason he would not meet with President Obama is because President Obama said, we're going to talk about denuclearization. We're not going to legitimize you. We're going to continue to put stronger and stronger
Well, and didn't I just say
sanctions
that
on
then
you.
if that's what he
That's
needs,
why
he would
wouldn't
never
meet
get a
with
meeting
us.
with him?
All right,
And it
let's
didn't
move
happen.
on. Let's
Excuse
move on
me.
and talk
He
about
left
American
me a
families.
mess, Kristen.
President Trump, okay, we do
They
need to move
left
on.
me a mess. North Korea was a mess.
We
And
need
in
to
fact,
move
if
on
you
so that
remember
we
the
can
first
get
2
to all
or
of
3
our
months,
questions tonight.
there was a very dangerous period in my first 3 months before we sort of worked things out a little bit.
Okay.
There was a they left us a mess. And Obama would be, I think, the first to say it was the single biggest problem he thought that our country.
Okay, let's move on to American families and the economy. One of the issues that's most important to them is healthcare, as you both know. Today, there was a key vote on a new Supreme Court Justice, Amy Coney Barrett, and healthcare is at the center of her
Oh, boy.
confirmation fight. Over 20 million Americans get their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. It's headed to the Supreme Court, and your
Because we
administration,
have
Mr.
no
President, is
choice.
advocating for the court to overturn it. If the Supreme Court does overturn that law, those 20 million Americans could lose their health insurance almost overnight. So what would you do if those people have their health insurance taken away in
Turn
2
it-
minutes uninterrupted?
First of all, I've already
Wow.
done something that nobody thought was possible. Through the legislature, I terminated the individual mandate. That is the worst part of Obamacare, as we call it. The individual mandate where you have to pay a fortune for the privilege of not having to pay for bad health insurance. I terminated it. It's gone. Now it's in court because Obamacare is no good. But then I made a decision. Run it as
Obamacare
well
is
as you can
terrible.
To my people, great people. Run
Let
it
me
as
tell you,
well as
because of
can. I could've gone the other
Obamacare,
route
I
and
pay
made everybody very unhappy.
$750
They
a
ran
month
it.
for health
Premiums
insurance
are
that
down,
covers
everything's down. Here's the problem.
nothing.
No matter how well
Nothing.
you run it, it's no
Because
good.
I'm
What we'd like to
self-employed
do
and there
is
are like
terminate
no
it. We
choices
have the
for
individual
people that are
mandate
self-employed.
I don't know that it's going to work. If we don't win, we will have to run it and we'll have Obamacare, but it'll be better run. But it no longer is Obamacare because without the individual mandate, it's much different. Pre-existing conditions will always stay. What I would like to do is a much better healthcare, much better, will always protect people with pre-existing. So I'd like to terminate Obamacare, come up with a brand new, beautiful healthcare. The Democrats will do it because there'll be tremendous pressure on them, and we might even have the House by that time. And I think we're going to win the House, okay? You'll see, but I think we're going to win the House. But come up with a better healthcare, always protecting people with pre-existing conditions.
That sounds so good, Mr. Robopilot. I would like a corn muffin, please.
Great private healthcare. Far more than we're talking about with Obamacare. Joe Biden is going to terminate all of those policies. These are people that love their health care, people that have been
successful. If you like your doctor, you can keep them.
Been successful. They have 180 million plans, 180 million people, families, under what he wants to do, which will basically be socialized medicine. He won't even have a choice. They want to terminate 180 million plans. We have done an incredible job on health care. And we're going to do even better.
Okay, Vice President Biden, yes, this is
did they
for you.
just
Your
mute
healthcare
him?
plan calls for building on Obamacare. So my question is, what is your plan if the law is ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
What I'm going to do is pass Obamacare with a public option. Become Biden care. The public option is an option
Biden
that says
care.
that if you, in fact, do not have the wherewithal to be, if you qualify for Medicaid,
If you don't have the wherewithal, that's ironic.
then your state to get Medicaid, you automatically enroll, providing competition for insurance companies. That's what's going to happen. Secondly, we're going to make sure we
The state does
reduce
not
the
provide
premiums and reduce drug
competition.
prices
That's
by
not how
making
that
sure that
works.
there's competition that doesn't exist now by allowing the Medicare to negotiate drug prices with the insurance companies. Thirdly, the idea that I want to eliminate private insurance, the reason why I had such a fight with 20 candidates for the nomination was I support private insurance. That's why I didn't, not one single
He can't
person with private
decide if
insurance
he
would
supports
lose
private
their
insurance.
under my plan, nor did they under Obamacare. They did not lose their insurance unless they chose they wanted to go to something else. Lastly, we're going to make sure we're in a situation that we actually protect pre-existing. There's no way he can protect pre-existing conditions. None, zero. You can't do it in the ether. He's been talking about this for a long time. He's never come up with a plan. I guess we're going to get the pre-existing condition plan the same time we get the infrastructure plan that we waited since 17, 18, 19, and 20. The fact, I still have a few more minutes. I know you're getting anxious. The fact is that he's already cost the American people, because of his terrible handling of the COVID virus and the economic spillover, 10 million people have lost their private insurance. And he wants to take away 22 million more people who have it under Obamacare, and over 110 million people with pre-existing conditions. And all the people from COVID are going to have pre-existing conditions. What are they going to do?
I have a follow-up for you, Vice President Biden. It relates to something that President Trump said. He's accusing you of wanting socialized medicine. What do you say to people who have concerns that your health care plan, which includes a government insurance option, takes the country one step closer to a health care system run entirely by the government?
I say it's ridiculous. It's like saying that,
But that is what he wants.
The idea that the fact that there's a public option that people can choose, that makes it a socialist plan. Look, the difference between the president, I think healthcare is not a privilege, it's a right. Everyone should have the right to have affordable healthcare.
No one has a right or entitlement to someone else's time or services.
All the major labor unions, as well as a whole range of other people who in fact are concerned in the medical field. This is something that's going to save people's lives, and this is going to give some people an opportunity an opportunity to have health care for their children. How many of you home are worried and rolling around in bed tonight wondering what in God's name you're going to do if you get sick?
I'm wondering
Because
what the
you
hell I'm
lost
going to
your
do if
home
fucking,
insurance- your
sorry,
health
if
insurance
Biden
money gone
wins.
under.
That just
We
slipped
have to
out.
provide health
Sorry,
insurance.
guys. I know some
And
people get
affordable
very
rate.
upset
That's
about
what I
that.
President
Excuse
Trump,
me, he was
Your
there
response.
for 47 years. He didn't do it. He
Yep.
was now there as vice president for 8 years, and it's not like it was 25 years ago. It was 3 3/4. It was just a little while ago, right? Less than 4 years ago. He didn't do anything. He didn't do it. He wants socialized medicine, and it's not that he wants it. His vice president, I mean, she is more liberal than Bernie Sanders and wants it even more. Bernie Sanders wants it. The Democrats want it. You're going to have socialized medicine, just like you went with fracking. We're not going to have fracking. We're going to stop fracking. We're going to stop fracking. Then he goes to Pennsylvania after he gets a nomination, where he got very lucky to get it. And he goes to Pennsylvania and he says, oh, we're going to have fracking.
Yep.
And you never asked that question. And by the way, so far, I respect very much the way you're handling this, I have to say.
By the way,
But somebody should ask the question.
you can ask.
He goes for a year. There will be.
He's not supposed to be interrupted.
We have a number of topics.
No, no,
He
but that's
hasn't
the-
hit
that's
2
the
minutes
question.
yet.
We're gonna get to it. We're gonna get to
It's the same thing with socialized
I have to
medicine.
respond.
Vice President, your response.
He has
My
not hit
response
2
is
minutes yet.
People deserve to have affordable health care, period. Period, period, period. And the Biden care proposal will in fact provide for that affordable health care, lower premiums. What we're going to do is going to cost some money. It's going to cost over $750 billion over 10 years to do it. And they're going to have lower premiums. You can buy into the better plans, the cheaper plans, lower your premiums, deal with unexpected billing, and have your drug prices drop significantly. He keeps talking about it. He hasn't done a thing for anybody on healthcare. Not a thing.
Just when he
Very quickly,
says,
then I want to talk
when
about
he
what's
says
happening on
public
Capitol
option,
Hill.
he's talking about socialized medicine. And when he, and healthcare, when he talks about a public option, he's talking about destroying your Medicare, totally
Wrong.
destroying, and destroying your Social Security. And this whole country will come down. You know, Bernie Sanders tried it in
Right.
his state. He tried it in his state. His governor was a very liberal governor. They want to make it work.
Okay,
It-
let's
it was
let Vice President
impossible
Biden
to work.
respond.
It doesn't
That is
work.
true.
Biden respond.
They've said they couldn't work because it costs too much.
He's running against Joe Biden. I beat all those other people because I disagreed with them. Joe Biden he's running against. And the idea that we're in a situation that they're going to destroy Medicare, this is the guy that the actuary of Medicare said, if in fact, at Social Security, if in fact he continues to withhold his plan to withhold the tax on Social Security, Social Security
I
will
do,
be
Kevin.
bankrupt by 2023.
And even the D word,
With no way to
the
make up for it.
DAMN
This is a
word.
guy who's tried to cut Medicare. So no, I mean, the idea that Donald Trump is lecturing me on Social Security and Medicare, come on.
He tried to get
10
rid of,
seconds,
he
Mr.
tried to hurt
President, then I
Social
have to go to
Security
another
years
question.
years ago. Go back and look at the records. He tried to hurt Social Security years ago.
All
One
right,
thing,
let's move
but
on.
this
I'm
is
gonna
the
move
guy
on.
that
Let
when
me,
they
Mr.
announced
President, I have
last
to move on
week,
to the next question.
They said
or
the
else
stock
we're not
market
gonna
will
have time to
boom
talk about it.
if I'm elected. If he's elected, the stock market will crash.
Okay, let's
biggest
move on to the
analysts are
next
saying that.
question,
No matter-
very quickly.
Look, the idea that the stock market is booming is his only measure of what's happening. Where I come from in Scranton and Claremont, the people don't live off of the stock market. Just in the last three years during this crisis, said the billionaires in this country made, according to the Wall Street, $700 billion more dollars. $700 billion more dollars, because that's his only measure. What happens to the ordinary people out there? What happens to them?
Let's talk about what's happening on Capitol Hill. We're gonna
Kristen,
move on. gentlemen.
401ks are through the roof.
We're gonna
People's
move on.
stock are through the roof.
All
And
right.
he doesn't come from Scranton. That's like he lived there for a short
We're
period of
gonna-
time before he
Okay,
even knew
we're
it.
gonna move on to
And he
the next
left. And the
question.
people of Pennsylvania
Let me
will
move
show
on
you
to my
that.
next question,
They
gentlemen.
understand.
As of tonight, more than 12 million people are out of work. And as of tonight, 8 million more Americans have fallen into poverty, and more families are going hungry every day. Those hit hardest are women and people of color. They see Washington fighting over a relief bill. Mr. President, why haven't you been able to get them the help they need? 30 seconds here.
Because Nancy
Congress.
Pelosi doesn't want to approve it. I do.
But you're the president.
I do, but I still have to get. Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons I think we're going to take over the House, because of her. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve anything because she'd love to have some victories on a date called November 3rd. Nancy Pelosi does not want to approve it. We are ready, willing, and able to do something. Don't forget, we've already approved 3 plans, and
That
it's
is
gone
true.
through, including the Democrats, in all fairness. This one she doesn't want. It's near the election because she thinks it helps her politically. I think it hurts her politically.
All right,
By the
Mr.
way,
Vice President,
You know, the Republican leader in the United States Senate said he can't pass it. He will not be able to pass it. He does not have Republican votes. Why ain't he talking to his Republican friends?
let me follow up with you, Vice President
we made a
Biden,
deal, the
because let me
Republicans
ask
would
Vice President Biden a question. You are the leader of the Democratic Party. Why have you not pushed the Democrats to get a deal for the American people?
Well, I have, and they have pushed it. Look, they passed this act
No, they
all the way
didn't.
back in the beginning of the summer.
Oh my
This is
God.
like it's not new. It's been out there. This HEROES Act has been sitting there. And look at what's happening. When I was in charge of the Recovery Act with $800 billion, I was able to get $145 billion to local communities that have to balance their budgets, the states that have to balance their budgets, so then have to fire firefighters, teachers, first responders, law enforcement officers, so they can keep their cities and counties running. He will not support that. They have not done a thing for them. And Mitch McConnell said, let them go bankrupt. Let them go bankrupt. Come on. What's the matter
The
with
bill
these
that was
guys?
passed in the House was a bailout of badly run, high crime, Democrat, all run by Democrats, cities and states.
Yep.
It was a way of getting a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars to these kids. It was also a way of getting a lot of money from our people's pockets to people that come into our country illegally. We were going to take care of everything.
There
for
was
them.
that
And what
in
that
there.
does, and I'd love
That
to
is
do that. I'd
true.
love to help them.
There
But
was
what that does,
immigration stuff in
everybody
that
all
bill.
over the world will start pouring into our country. We can't do it. This was a way of taking care of them. This was a way of spending on things that had nothing to do with COVID, as per your question. But it was really a big bailout for badly run Democrat cities and states.
All
By
right,
the
I
way,
want
if
to,
I get elected, I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I'm going to be an American president. I don't see red states and blue states. What I see is American,
Bullshit.
United States. And folks, every single state out there finds themselves in trouble. They're going to start laying off, whether they're red or blue, cops, firefighters, first responders, because teachers, because they have to balance their budget. And the founders were smart. They allowed the federal government to deficit spend to compensate for the United States of America.
I want to talk about the minimum wage, gentlemen. Mr. Vice President, we are talking a lot about struggling small businesses
Yes.
and business owners these days. Do you think this is the right time to ask them to raise the minimum wage? You, of course, support a $15 federal minimum wage.
I do, because I think one of the things we're going to have to do is
That's
we're
a
gonna
good
have to
question,
bail them
actually.
out too. We should be bailing them out now, those small businesses. You got 1 in 6 of them going under. They're not going to be able to make it back. They passed a package that allows us to be able to call PPP. Money is supposed to go to help them do everything from organize how they can deal with their businesses being open safely. Schools, how they can make classrooms smaller, how they can hire more teachers, how they can put ventilation systems in. They need the help. The businesses as well as the schools need the help. But these guys will not help them. It's not giving them any of the money.
We are going to
That
move on
is
to immigration,
not true.
but I want
He
to
said
get
we
your
have to help our
reaction.
small businesses by raising the
And
minimum wage.
this is
That's
coming
not
from
helping.
someone, I don't
I
believe
think
that
it
we
should
should
be a
be
state
giving
option.
anyone money.
Alabama is different than New York. New York is different from Vermont. Every state is different. It should be a state option.
You said very
We have to
recently,
help. It's very important. We have to help our small businesses.
you
How are
said,
you helping your small businesses when you're forcing wages? What's going to happen, and what's been proven to happen, is when you do that, these small businesses fire many of their employees.
you said very
Not true.
recently you would
And
what is
consider raising the federal
PPP?
minimum
They
wage to
didn't-
$15
Say
an hour. You said recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to
What I
$15 an hour.
really
Is that
like,
still the case?
and I would consider it to an extent, but
In a
what I
second
really like,
administration?
in a second administration, but not to a level that's going to put all these businesses out of business.
Correct.
It should be a state option. Look, I've lived in different places. I know different places. They're all different. Some places, $15 is not so bad. In other places, other states, $15 would be
Okay, President
ruinous.
Trump,
Right.
thank you. Quick
No,
response,
He
Vice
is
President
completely
Biden.
right.
2 jobs, 1 job, be below poverty. People are making $6, $7, $8 an hour. These first responders, we all clap for as they come down the street because they've allowed us to make it. What's happening? They deserve a minimum wage of $15. Anything below that puts you below the poverty level. And there is no evidence that when you raise the minimum wage, businesses go out of business. That's
There
simply
is
not true.
We're gonna
Tons of
talk about
evidence. There are
immigration. We're gonna talk
tons
about
of
immigration now,
studies.
gentlemen. And we're going to talk about families within this context. Mr. President, your
Oh my God.
administration separated children from their parents at the border. At least 4,000 kids.
Oh my
You've since
God.
reversed
I
your
can't believe he
zero-tolerance
said, I mean, I
policy,
can believe
but the
he said
United
that, but
States can't
damn.
locate the parents of more than 500 children. So how will these families ever be reunited?
Children are brought here by coyotes and lots of bad people, cartels, and they're brought here, and they used to use them to get into our country. We now have as strong a border as we've ever had. We're over 400 miles of brand new wall. You see the numbers, and we let people in, but they have to come in legally, and they come in through.
But how will you reunite
me
these
just tell
kids
you,
with their
Let me
families,
just tell you,
Mr.
they
President?
built cages. You know, they used to say,
Thank you,
"I built the
Shonda."
cages." And then they had a picture in a certain newspaper.
Look at Joe
There was a
Biden.
picture of these horrible cages, and they said, "Look at these cages. President Trump built them." And then it was determined they were built in 2014. That was
Yep.
him.
Do you
They
have a
built
plan to
cages.
reunite the kids?
Yes,
with
we're
their
working on
families?
it we're trying very hard. But a lot of these kids come out without the parents. They come over through cartels and through coyotes and through gangs.
Vice President Biden, let me bring you into this
525.
conversation. Quick response and then another question to you.
These 500 plus kids came with
500
parents.
kids.
They separated them at the border to make it a
That
disincentive to
Was
come to
a
begin
policy in place since the
with. Real
1980s.
tough. We're really strong. And guess
Just
what?
saying.
They cannot, it's not coyotes didn't bring them over. Their parents were with them. They got separated from their parents. And it makes us a laughing stock and violates every notion of who we are as a nation.
Let me ask you a follow-up
Kristen,
question.
they did it. We changed the policy.
Your response
They
to
did
that?
it. We changed.
did not.
They built the
separate
cages.
They,
Who built the cages, Joe?
let's talk about what
Who
we're
built the
talking about.
cages,
Let's
Joe?
talk about what we're talking about. What happened? Parents were ripped, their kids were ripped from their arms and separated. And now they cannot find over 500 sets of those parents, and those kids are alone. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. It's criminal. It's criminal.
Let me ask
Kristen,
you
I
about
will say this,
immigration.
they went
10
down, we
seconds, and
brought
then I need to ask
reporters,
you.
everything. They are so well taken care of. They're in
Yeah, it does
facilities that
seem
we
like
so
things aren't
clean.
But
synced
some of them
up.
Gotten
haven't been
such good-
reunited.
But
with
just
their
ask
families.
one question. Who built the cages? I'd love you to ask him that. Who built the cages?
Let me ask about your immigration policy, Mr. Vice President. The Obama administration did fail to deliver immigration reform, which had been a key promise during the administration. It also presided over record deportations as well as family detentions at the border before changing course. So why should voters trust you with an immigration overhaul?
Wow.
Because we made
Okay.
a mistake. It took too long to get it right. It took too long to get it right. I'll be president of the United States, not vice president of the United States. And the fact is, I've made it very clear.
So is now he
Within 100
suggesting he would
days,
do
I'm
better
gonna
than
send to the United
Obama?
States Congress a pathway to citizenship for over 11 million undocumented people. And all of those so-called dreamers, those DACA kids, they're going to be immediately certified again to be able to stay in this country and put on a path to citizenship. The idea that they are being sent home by this guy and they want to do that is they're going to a country they've never seen before. I can imagine you're 5 years old, your parents are taking you across the Rio Grande River and it's illegal. And you say, "Oh no, Mom, leave me here. I'm not going to go with you." They've been here. Many of them are model citizens. Over 20,000 of them are first responders out there taking care of people during this crisis. We owe them. We owe them.
President,
Kristen, he
your
had
reaction.
8 years to do what he said he was going to do. And I've
We
changed
did.
without having a specific, we got rid of catch and release. We got rid of a lot of horrible things that they put in and that they lived with. But he had 8 years he was vice president. He did nothing except build cages to keep children in.
Vice President
Wrong.
Biden, your response.
The catch and release, you know what he's talking about there? If in fact
Fish.
you had family came across and they were arrested, they in fact were given a date to show up for their hearing. They were released. And guess what? They showed up for a hearing. And this is the first president in the history of the United States of America that anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country. That's never happened before in America. That's never happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case that I seek asylum based on the following premise, why I deserve it under American law. They're sitting in squalor on the other side of the river.
President Trump, your response,
So
30
important.
seconds.
For some
and then
reason,
we'll-
I'm
It just shows
thinking
that he has no
of that Saturday
understanding
Night
of
Live skit
immigration
about
of the
living in a
laws.
van down
Catch
the
and
river. I
release
don't
is a
really know
disaster.
why.
A murderer would come in, a rapist would come in, a very bad person would come in. We would take their name. We have to release them into our country. And then you say they come back. Less than 1% of the people come back. We have to send
Not true.
ICE out and Border Patrol out to find them. We would say, come back in 2 years, 3 years. We're going to give you a court case. You need Perry Mason. We're going to give you a court case. When you say they come back, they don't come back, Joe.
Yeah.
They never come back. Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ, they might come back.
Okay,
Oh.
President Trump,
Very,
let's
very
give
few.
Vice President Biden a chance to
Oh.
respond, and then we're going to move on to
Oh,
the
You
next
don't know
section.
more, Joe.
Vice President Biden, your response.
Oh,
Lawyers
no.
tell me it was simply not true.
Well, check
Check
it
it
out.
out.
They don't come back.
Check it out.
All right, let's
Oh,
move
But
on
we don't have to
no.
worry
to the
about it
next
because they
section.
terminated it.
That-
So we don't have to
that
worry
was
about
a
it.
big
Let's
Right.
move
one.
on to the next
Yeah,
section.
525 kids not knowing where in God's name they're going to be and lost their parents.
Go ahead.
All right, let's talk about
That
our
was
next section,
bad.
which is race in America. And I want to talk about the way Black and Brown
Ooh.
Americans experience race in this country. Part of that experience is something called the talk. It happens regardless of class and income. Parents who feel they have no choice but to prepare their children for the chance that they could be targeted, including by the police, for no reason other than the color of their skin. Mr. Vice President, in the next 2 minutes, I want you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
I do. You know, my daughter is a social worker, and she's written a lot about this. She has a graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania in social work. And you know, one of the reasons why I ended up working on the east side of Wilmington, Delaware, which is 90% African American, was to learn more about what was going on. What I never had to tell my daughter, if she's pulled over, make sure she puts for a traffic stop, put both hands on top of the wheel and don't reach for the glove box.
I
because
mean,
someone may shoot you.
That
But
can
a black
happen
parent,
regardless
No
of
matter
what
how
race you
wealthy
are,
or how
honestly.
poor they are, has to teach their child when you're
I'm not
walking
gonna
down
lie,
the street.
I'm terrified
you
when
have
I
a
get
hoodie on
pulled
when you go
over.
across the street, making sure
No
that
sudden
you, in
movements,
fact, if you
nothing.
get pulled over, yes, sir, no, sir, hands on top of the wheel, because you are, in fact, the victim, whether you're a person making child of a $300,000 a year person or someone who's on food stamps. The fact of the matter is, there is institutional racism in America. And we have always said, we've never lived up to it, that we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal. Well, guess what? We have never, ever lived up to it, but we've always constantly been moving the needle further and further to inclusion, not exclusion. This is the first president to come along and says, that's the end of that. We're not going to do that anymore. We have to provide for economic opportunity, better education, better health care, better access to schooling, better access to opportunity to borrow money to start businesses. All the things we can do, and I've laid out a clear plan as to how to do those things.
That is
Just
terrifying,
to give people
David.
a shot. It's about accumulating the ability to have wealth as well as it is to be free from violence.
President Trump, same question to you, and let me remind you of the question. I would like you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
Yes, I do. And again, he's been in government 47 years. He never did a thing except in 1994 when he did such harm to the Black community. And they were called, and he called them super predators. And he
That
said
was
that.
Hillary
He said it,
Clinton.
super predators.
That was
And they
Hillary
have
Clinton,
never lived that
honestly.
down. 1994, your crime bill, the super predators. Nobody has done more for the Black community than Donald Trump. And if you look, with the exception of Abraham Lincoln, possible exception, but the exception of Abraham Lincoln, nobody has done what I've done. Criminal justice reform. Obama and Joe didn't do it. I don't even think they tried because they had no chance at doing it. They might have wanted to do it, but if you had to see the arms I had to twist to get that done, it was not a pretty picture. And everybody knows it, including some very liberal people that cried in my office. They cried in the Oval Office. 2 weeks later, they're out saying, gee, we have to defeat him. Criminal justice reform, prison reform, opportunity zones with Tim Scott, a great senator from South Carolina, He came in with this incredible idea for opportunity zones. It's one of the most successful programs. People don't talk about it. Tremendous investment is being made. Biggest beneficiary, the Black and Hispanic communities, and then historically Black colleges and universities. After 3 years of coming to the office, I love some of those guys. They were great. They came into the office and I said, what are you doing? After 3 years, I said, why do you keep coming back? Because we have no funding. I said, you don't have to come back every year. We have to come back because President Obama would never give them long-term funding. And I did 10-year long-term funding. And I gave them more money than they asked for because they said, I think you need more. And I said, the only bad part about this is I may never see you again because I got very friendly with them and they like me and I like them. But I saved it. Colleges and universities.
Okay, and we're going to talk about both of your records, but your response to that, Vice
My
Chair.
response to that is I never, ever said what he accused me of saying. The fact of the matter is in 2000, though, after the crime bill had been in the law for a while, this is the guy who said, the problem with the crime bill, there's not enough people in jail. There's not enough people in jail. And go on my website, get the quote, the date when he said it, not enough people. He talked about marauding gangs, young gangs, and the people who are going to maraud our cities. This is a guy who in the Central Park five innocent Black kids, he continued to push for making sure that they got the death penalty. None of them were guilty of the crimes they were
I don't know. This sounds a lot like
Look,
Joe Biden in
and talk about
1994.
Granted, he did in fact let 20 people, he commuted 20 people sentences. We commuted over 1,000 people sentences. Over 1,000. The very law he's talking about is a law that, in fact, initiated by Barack Obama. And secondly, we're in a situation here where the federal prison system was reduced by 38,000 people under our administration. And one of these things we should be doing, there should be no minimum mandatories in the law. That's why I'm offering $20 billion to states to change their state laws to eliminate minimum mandatories and set up drug courts. No one should be going to jail because they have a drug problem. They should be going to rehabilitation.
I mean, I do agree with that.
We should fundamentally change the system, and that's what I'm going
Drug
to do.
addiction
Why didn't
is
he do
a
it
health
4 years
issue,
ago?
not a legal
Why didn't
issue.
you do that 4 years ago, even less than that? Why didn't you
I
do it?
am
You were
not-
vice president. You keep talking about all these things you're going to do and you're going to do this, but you were there just a short time ago and you guys did nothing.
We
You know,
did.
Joe, I ran because of you. I ran because of Barack Obama, because you did a poor job. If I thought you did a good job, I would have never run. I would have never run. I ran because of you. I'm looking at you now. You're a politician. I ran because of you.
All right, Vice President Biden, your response to that, and then I do have some
Yeah.
questions for both of you.
Well, I tell you what, I hope he does look at me, because what's happening here is, you know who I am, you know who he is, you know his character, you know my character, you know our reputations for honor and telling the truth. I am anxious to have this race. I am anxious to see this take place. The character of the country is on the ballot. Our character is on the ballot. Look at us closely.
Let me ask some
Excuse
follow-up.
me.
Please respond, and
If
then
this
we're going to have
stuff
follow-up
is
questions.
true about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq, if this is true, then he's a corrupt politician.
All right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody's
Take a look
President
at the
Trump, I
laptop
want to
from
stay
hell.
on the issue of race. We're
Take a look
talking
at
about the issue.
laptop from hell.
President Trump, we're
Nobody.
talking about race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
And I
you've
have to
just,
respond to that.
Please.
Because look,
very
there
quickly.
are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. They
That
have
is
said
not
that
true.
this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage.
That's not true.
Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
And
You
that's
got it.
exactly
Ratcliffe
what
confirmed
this
it's
is.
not Russian. The
exactly what-
This is
FBI
where he's going.
confirmed.
The laptop is Russia,
Yeah.
Russia,
Gentlemen,
Russia.
I want to stay on the issue of race.
You
okay?
have to be kidding. Here we
Mr.
go
President?
again with Russia.
We're going to continue
Boy,
on the
boy.
issue of race. Mr. President,
believe
you've
that one.
described the Black Lives Matter movement as a symbol of hate. You've shared a video of a man chanting white power to millions of your supporters. You've said that Black professional athletes exercising their First Amendment rights should be fired. What do you say to Americans who say that kind of language from a president is contributing to a climate of hate and racial strife?
Well, you have to understand, the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter They were chanting, pigs in a blanket, talking about police. Pigs, talking about our police. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. I said, that's a horrible thing. And they were marching down the street. And that was my first glimpse of Black Lives Matter. I thought it was a terrible thing. As far as my relationships with
This is true.
all people,
Hunter's
I think
lawyer
I have
did
great
ask for the
relationships
laptop
with
to be
all people.
returned.
I am the least racist person in this room.
Well, what do you say to Americans who are concerned by that rhetoric?
I don't
by
know.
the
I mean, I don't know
videos?
what to say. I got criminal justice reform done and prison reform and opportunity zones. I took care of Black colleges and universities. I don't know what to say. They can say anything. I mean, they can say anything. It makes me sad because I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark, but I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
Okay, Vice President Biden, let me ask you very quickly, and then I have a follow-up question for you.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire.
What?
Every single one. Started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything
Did he
worse
just
across
call
the board. He
Trump
says to
Abraham
about
Lincoln?
The Poor Boys. Last time we were on stage here, he said, I told him to stand down and stand ready. Come on. This guy has a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
President Trump, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I have a follow-up.
You made a reference to Abraham Lincoln. Where did that come in? I mean,
You said
where
you're
did
Abraham
that,
Lincoln.
No, where did that? No.
You
I
said
said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the Black community.
and I'm
I didn't
saying
say I'm Abraham Lincoln. I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the Black community. Now, you have done nothing other than the crime bill, which put
oh God.
tens of thousands of Black men, mostly in jail.
All right,
And
let me
you know
let me
what?
a- let me
They
ask
remember
Vice
it
President
because if
Biden
you look
a
at what's
question.
happening with the voting right now,
Let me ask
they
Vice
remember
President
that you
Biden
treated them
about
very, very badly.
The-
Just
the-
take a look at what's happening out there.
Vice President Biden,
That
let me
is
give you a
true.
chance to respond within this context. Crime
Trump
bills
is
that you
doing
support
very
in
well
ways
with
and others
Black and
contributed to
Latino
the
voters right
incarceration of
now.
Tens of thousands of young Black men who had small amounts of drugs in their possession. They are sons, they are brothers, they're fathers, they're uncles, whose families are still to this day, some of them suffering the consequences. So speak to those families. Why should they vote for you?
One of the things is that in the 80s, we passed 100%, all 100 senators voted for it, a bill on drugs and how to deal with drugs. It was a mistake. I've been trying to change it since then, particularly the portion on cocaine.
Well, he
That's
hasn't
why
done
I've
very
been
well with that,
arguing
then,
that,
has
in
he?
fact, we should not send anyone to jail for a pure drug offense. They should be going into treatment across the board. That's what we should be spending money. That's why I set up drug courts, which were never funded by our Republican friends. They should not be going to jail for a drug or an alcohol problem. They should be going into treatment. That's what we've been trying to do. That's what I'm going to get done because I think maybe the American people have now seen that, in fact, it was a mistake to pass those laws relating to the drug. But they were not in the crime bill.
But
Okay,
why
so-
didn't he get it done? See, it's all talk, no action with these politicians. Why didn't he get it done? That's what I'm going to do when I become president. You were vice president along with Obama as your president, your leader, for 8 years. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years
It's a
to
good
get it
question.
done. Now you're saying you're going to get it done because you're all talk and no action, Jim.
We got a
Your
lot of it
response.
done. We released
You get
38,000. We
anything
got
done.
38,000 prisoners left from
You got nothing done.
38,000 prisoners were released from federal prison. There were over 1,000 people who were given clemency. In fact, we're the ones that put in the legislation saying we could look at pattern and practice of police departments and what they were doing, how they were conducting themselves. I could go on, but we began the process. We lost an election. That's why I'm running to win back that election and change his terrible policy.
I
Quick
just
response,
asked,
and then we're
I
gonna
just
move
asked
on to
one
climate
question.
change.
Why didn't you do it in the 8 years, a short time ago? Why didn't you do it? You just said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. You put tens of thousands of mostly Black young men in prison. Now you're saying you're going to undo that. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years with Obama. You know
Yeah,
why, Joe?
it's
Because
valid.
you're all talk and no action.
All right, Vice President
Because
Biden, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
We had a Republican Congress. That's answering.
Well, you
Okay.
Okay.
gotta talk them into it, Joe.
All right.
Sometimes you gotta talk them into it.
We're going to move on to our next section.
Like I
which
did
is
with criminal
climate-
justice reform. I had
Okay.
to talk Democrats into it.
Gentlemen,
You did.
we're running out of time, so we got to get on to climate change, please. You both have very different visions on climate change. President Trump, you say that environmental regulations have hurt jobs in the energy sector. Vice President Biden, you have said you see addressing climate change as an opportunity to create new jobs. For each of you, how would you both combat climate change and support job growth at the same time? Starting with you, President Trump, you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So we have the Trillion Trees program. We have so many different programs. I do love the environment, but what I want is the cleanest, crystal clear water, the cleanest air. We have the best, lowest number in carbon emissions, which is a big standard that I notice Obama goes with all the time. Not Joe. I haven't heard Joe use the term because I'm not sure he knows what it represents or means, but I have heard Obama use it. And we have the best carbon emission numbers that we've had in 35 years under this administration. We are working so well with industry, but here's what we can't do. Look at China, how filthy it is. Look at Russia. Look at India. It's filthy. The air is filthy. The Paris Accord, I took us out because we were going to have to spend trillions of dollars and we were treated very unfairly. When they put us in there, they did us a great disservice. They were going to take away our businesses. I will not sacrifice tens of millions of jobs, thousands and thousands of companies because of the Paris Accord. It was so unfair. China doesn't kick in until 2030. Russia goes back to a low standard, and we kicked in right away. It would have destroyed our businesses. So, you ready? We have done an incredible job environmentally. We have the cleanest air, the cleanest water, and the best carbon emission standards that we've seen in many, many years.
Vice President
And we
Biden.
haven't destroyed our industries.
Vice President Biden, 2 minutes to you, uninterrupted.
Climate change, climate warming, global warming is an existential threat to humanity. We have a moral obligation to deal with it. And we're told by all the leading scientists in the world, we don't have much time. We're going to pass the point of no return within the next 8 to 10 years.
I mean, I
years
feel
of
like
this
they've
man
been saying that since
eliminating
Al
all the
Gore.
regulations that were put in by us to clean up the climate, to clean up, to
Clean
limit
up the climate.
the limit of emissions will put us in a position where we're going to be in real trouble. Here's where we have a great opportunity. I was able to get both all the environmental organizations as well as labor, the people worried about jobs, to support my climate plan. Because what it does, it will create millions of new good paying jobs. We're going to invest
The government does not
for
create
example,
jobs.
50,000 charging stations on our highways so that we can own the electric car market of the future. In the meantime, China is doing that. We're going to be in a position where we're going to see to it that we're going to take 4 million existing buildings and 2 million existing homes and retrofit them so they don't leak as much energy, saving hundreds
This
of
is the
millions of
stuff that's
barrels
in
of
the Green New
oil
Deal
in the process and creating
that he says he doesn't
significant number of
support.
jobs. And by the way, the whole idea of what this is all going to do, it's going to create millions of jobs and it's going to clean the
Government
environment.
does
Our
not
health
create
and our jobs
jobs.
are at stake. That's
That's
what's
not how
happening.
the economy
And
works.
right now, by the way, Wall Street firms indicated that my plan will in fact create 18.6 million jobs, 7 million more than his. This is from Wall Street. And I'll create $1 trillion more in economic growth than his proposal does. Not on
But
climate,
his tax
just on the
plan would
economy.
lower the
President Trump,
GDP
you're
by
right.
1.5%.
And said very strongly, $6,500 will be taken away from
And
families
cost
under his
4.5
plan.
million
That his
jobs.
plan is an economic disaster. If you look at what he wants to do, if you look at his plan,
Nothing
his
to do with
environmental
climate.
plan, you know who developed it? AOC +3.
Yep.
They know nothing about the climate. I mean, she's got a good line of stuff, but she knows nothing about the climate. And they're all hopping through hoops for AOC +3. Look, their real plan cost $100 trillion. If we had the best year in the history of our country for 100 years, we would not even come close to a number like that. When he says buildings, they want to take buildings down because they want to make bigger windows into smaller windows. As far as they're concerned, if you had no window, it would be a lovely thing. This is the craziest plan that anybody has ever seen. And this wasn't done by smart people. This wasn't done by anybody. Frankly, I don't even know how it could be good politically. They want to spend $100 trillion. That's their real number. He's trying to say it was 6. It's $100 trillion. They want to knock down buildings and build new buildings with little, tiny, small windows. I mean, and many other things.
Okay.
And many other things.
Let me have
It's funny
the
the
Vice
little
President
details
on,
that he
and we're running out of
focuses
time.
on,
We have
like
a
the
lot
little
more questions
windows.
to
Destroy
get
our
to.
country.
So let's hear from the Vice President. I have a number more
I
questions.
don't know where he comes from. I don't know where he comes up with these numbers.
Queen.
$100 trillion. Give me a break. This plan endorsed by every major environmental group and every labor group. Labor, because they know the future lies. The future lies in us being
Well,
able
let me
to
tell you
breathe.
something about labor
know they're good
unions. They
jobs and getting
tell
us there.
their
And by the
workers
way,
who they need to
the
vote
fastest
for.
growing industry in America is the electric, solar energy and wind. He thinks wind causes cancer, windmills. It's the fastest growing jobs, and they pay good prevailing wages, 45, 50
Those
bucks an hour.
wind turbines,
We
by the way,
can
are
grow
non-recyclable.
and we can be
Just so
cleaner
you know.
if we go the route I'm proposing.
President
Excuse
Trump,
me.
please
We are
respond, and then I have
we
some
are
follow-ups.
energy independent for the first time. We don't need all of these countries that we had to fight war over because we needed their energy. We are energy independent. I know more about wind than you do. It's extremely expensive, kills all the birds. It's very intermittent. It's got a lot of problems. And they happen to make the windmills in both Germany and China. And the fumes coming up, if you're a believer in carbon emission, the fumes coming up to make these massive windmills is more than anything that we're talking about with natural gas, which is very clean. One other thing.
Find me a
Solar.
scientist said that.
I love solar, but solar doesn't quite have it yet. It's not powerful yet to really run our big, beautiful factories that we need to
That's
compete
true.
with the world. So
False.
it's all a pipe dream. But you know what we'll do? We're going to have the greatest economy in the
I thought
world.
people were
But if
supposed
you
to be
wanna
muted
kill
so
the
they couldn't
economy,
interrupt.
Get rid of your oil industry. You want, and what about fracking?
All right,
Now-
let me
now we have to ask
let me
about
allow
fracking.
Vice President
I
Biden to
have
respond.
never said I oppose fracking.
You said it on
I-
tape.
I did show the tape, put it on your website.
I'll put it on.
Put it on the website. The fact of the matter is
Show
he's
the
flat lying.
Would you rule out banning fracking?
I do rule out banning fracking because the answer, we need other industries to transition to get to ultimately a complete zero emissions by 2025. What I will do with fracking over time is make sure that we can capture the emissions from the fracking, capture the emissions from gas. We can do that, and we can do that by investing money and doing it. But it's a transition to that.
I have one more question in this pod, and then
Excuse me,
we
he
have.
was against fracking. He said it. I will show that to you tomorrow. I
Good.
am against fracking. Until he got the nomination, went to Pennsylvania, then he said, but you know what, Pennsylvania? He'll be against it very soon because his party is totally against it.
Fracking on federal land, I said. No fracking
You
and
said-
or oil on
you said-
federal
Let
land.
me ask this
I
final
did.
question in this section, and then I want to move on to our final section. President Trump, people of color are much more likely to live near oil refineries and chemical plants. In Texas, there are families who worry the plants near them are making them sick. Your administration has rolled back regulations on these kinds of facilities. Why should these families give you another 4 years in office?
The families that we're talking about are employed heavily and they're making a lot of money, more money than they've ever made. If you look at the kind of numbers that we produce for Hispanic, or Black, or Asian, it's 9 times greater the percentage gain than it was in 3 years, than it was under 8 years of the 2 of them, to put it nicely. 9 times more. Now, somebody lives, I have not heard the numbers or the statistics that you're saying, but they're making a tremendous amount of money economically. We saved it. And I saved it again a number of months ago when oil was crashing because of the pandemic. We
Okay.
saved it. We got, say what you want about relationship, we got Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Russia to cut back, way back. We saved our oil industry, and now it's very vibrant again.
All
And
right.
everybody has very inexpensive gasoline. Remember
Vice
that.
President Biden, your response, and then we're going to have a final question for both of you.
My response is that those people live on what they call fence lines. He doesn't understand this. They live near chemical plants that in fact pollute, chemical plants and oil plants and refineries that pollute. I used to live near that when I was growing up in Claymont, Delaware. And the more oil refineries in Marcus Hook and the Delaware River than there is any place, including in Houston at the time. When my mom get in the car and when there was first frost to drive me to school, turning the windshield over, there'd be oil slick in the window. That's why so many people in my state were dying and getting cancer. The fact is, those frontline communities, it doesn't matter what you're paying them, it matters how you keep them safe. What do? And you impose restrictions on the pollutants coming out of those fence line communities.
Okay, I have one final
Would he
question.
close down the oil industry?
It falls.
Would you close down the
falls-
oil
By the way, I
industry?
would transition from the oil industry, yes. I
Oh,
will
that's a big
transition.
statement.
Oh.
It is a big statement
That's a-
because I would stop
Why would you do that?
because the oil industry pollutes significantly.
I see.
Here's the deal, but you
That's a
can't
big
do that.
statement.
Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. You won't give federal subsidies to the gas, to solar and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to the oil industry?
We actually do
All
give it
right.
to solar and wind.
We
And
have
that's
one
maybe the
final
biggest
question.
statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement.
Okay.
Because
we have
basically
one
what he's
final
saying
question,
is he is
Mr.
going to
President.
destroy the oil industry. Will you remember that, Texas? Will you
Okay.
remember that, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma?
Vice President Biden, let me give you 10 seconds to respond, and then
Ohio.
I have to get to the final question. Vice President Biden.
It takes everything out of context, but the point is, look, we have to move toward a net zero emissions. The first place to do that by the year 2035 is in energy production, by 2050 totally.
All right. One
Is he gonna
final
get
question
China to
both
do
of
it?
you. No, we're finished with
Is
this.
he
We have
going to
to
get
move on
China
to
to
our
do it?
final question. We
No,
have to
I'm
move on
going to
to our
rejoin
final
Paris
question.
Accord and make China abide by what they agreed to.
All right,
That'll
this
cost
is
you $1
about
trillion.
leadership, gentlemen. And this first question does go to you, President Trump. Imagine this is your inauguration day. What will you say in your address to Americans who did not vote for you? You'll each have 1 minute, starting with you, Ms.
We have
Thank
to
you
make
very
our
much,
country
Jim.
Totally successful as it
It's been
was
a while
prior to
since
the
I've
plague
seen
coming
you.
in from China. Now we're rebuilding it and we're doing record numbers, 11.4 million jobs in a short period of time, et cetera. But I will tell you, go back. Before the plague came in, just before, I was getting calls from people that were not normally people that would call me. They wanted to get together. We had the best Black unemployment numbers in the history of our country. Hispanic, women, Asian, people with diplomas, with no diplomas, MIT graduates, #1 in the class. Everybody had the best numbers. And you know what? The
David, I
other
could get
side
behind
wanted
that.
to get together. They wanted to unify. Success is going to bring us together. We are on the road to success, but I'm cutting taxes and he wants to raise everybody's taxes and he wants to put new regulations on everything. He will kill it. If he gets in, you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen. Your 401ks will go to hell and it'll be a very, very sad day for this country.
All right. Vice President Biden, same question to you. What will you say during your inaugural address to Americans who did not vote for you?
I will say, I'm an American president. I represent all of you, whether you voted for me or against me. And I'm going to make sure that you're represented. I'm going to give you hope. We're going to move. We're going to choose science over fiction. We're going to choose hope over fear. We're going to choose
Hope
to move
over
forward
fear?
because we have enormous
Really?
opportunities.
Really?
Enormous opportunities.
Democrats,
things
really?
We can grow this economy. We can deal with the systemic racism. And at the same time, we can make sure that our economy is being run and moved and motivated by clean energy, creating millions of new jobs. And that's the fact. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to say, as I said at the beginning, what is on the ballot here is the character of this country: decency, honor, respect, treating people with dignity, making sure that everyone has an even chance. And I'm going to make sure you get that. You haven't been getting it the last 4 years.
All right. I want to thank you both for a very robust hour and a half, a fantastic debate. Really appreciate it. President Trump, former Vice President Joe Biden, thank you to Belmont University for hosting us tonight. And most importantly, thank you to those watching tonight Election Day is November 3rd. Don't forget to vote. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, CBA Buck. Wow, that was something else, wasn't it? Indiana Tony is correct that was oh, I clicked on the wrong thing. Where did it go? It definitely was a much better debate than the last one, for sure. For sure. They're just standing around awkwardly. Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised the moderator is not as bad as I thought she was going to be. I mean, she definitely could have followed up more on some of those questions with Biden about the laptop, but at the same time, I mean, it's very clear that legacy media and reporters and things like that are trying to avoid that topic. They've been avoiding it very strongly. And in fact, the one reporter that was, brave enough, we'll say, to ask Biden about that got yelled at and totally chewed out. So definitely it did seem that she was allowing Biden to have the last word more often. But all in all, way better than Chris Wallace. That is for sure. They did use the mute function, but they used it a lot less than I thought that they would. So that was also surprising. I don't know if that's what kept people in check, thinking that they were muted or what. But yeah, I mean, that was definitely... It was interesting. It was better than I thought it was going to be, but I would say both better and worse. It was better than I thought it was going to be, but it was worse than I thought it was going to be, because I thought it was going to be like a lot funnier and a lot more ridiculous, and it was going to be like a WWE like chair brawl or something like that. Oh man. But yeah, so that is that. That is a lot to process. I have not put up the stream yet oh goodness. Sorry guys. I never finished my coffee today before I came on. I have to start up the stream for tomorrow. I don't have that up yet or scheduled yet, but that will be up. I will be doing a stream tomorrow, and it will be all about everything that's going on in the Hunter Biden scandal, all the ways that Joe Biden is now being implicated, the fact that the laptop is now with the Delaware police for other reasons, the fact that the FBI was looking into it for a money laundering scheme, the fact that Dianne Feinstein's name has come up, as has Kamala Harris, as has Chuck Schumer and some of the other major Democrats, all up in this scandal. I mean, it's crazy. The information, I mean, when I tell you guys, I have at least probably 200 tabs open about this. I am not kidding. That is how much information is out there and how quickly it's changing and coming out. And of course, we'll touch on the debate a little bit tomorrow as well, so that people can process it some more and have some time to think about it. Unfortunately, I am not feeling very well, so I'm going to have to sign off and not process this with you guys as much as I normally would. But thank you, everyone who tuned in. Thank you for the thumbs up. We had about 1,400 people on at one point, which is pretty awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for the super chats. The folks over on Patreon and Subscribestar, and when you send in super chats, that is the stuff that keeps this channel alive, keeps the lights on, my studio lights on. So again, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you, Michael Bradley, Brad the Magnificent. I know that during these debates, I don't read them, so I try to make sure that they get on screen so people can at least see them. Oh goodness, they're still coming in. But hopefully you guys had a good time. Hopefully this made it a little bit more worth it and a little bit easier to digest. Hopefully the audio wasn't too bad. I know that there was a syncing issue, but that was with YouTube because that was happening on the screen that I was like casting over to you guys as well. But anyways, like I said, I'm not feeling well, so I really do need to dip. I will see you guys tomorrow at 7 p.m. for the usual Friday Night Live. Again, thanks for tuning in, everyone, and helping me to spread the message of liberty. Have a good night.